Um, Good morning.
Good morning.
Fantastic. Fantastic to see you. And thank you everyone for coming out today to get a little taste of Cheverny with Laura Samaria of Domaine de Montcy. This is one of my favorite growers that we work with at the sorting table. It's definitely something that is really vivacious and bright and joyful wine, and I think very much represents you. So I'm excited to introduce you to everyone. We will be recording this just so everyone knows, and I'd appreciate that if we, any questions, feel free to write in the side, and we will. I'll work those in, as I have a bunch of questions that we've already sort of set up, but there's plenty of room to ask specific questions about Cheverny, Romorantin, jelly, whatever you'd like to talk about. But what I'd like to say is if we could just make sure that we're muted outside of Laura and myself, as well as beyond being muted, turn off your video just so we can get the best quality as we are trying to get all the way from the Loire Valley to all of your houses. So, Laura,
Hi,
could you I think what's really fascinating is a lot of times, we talk about multi-generational winemaking families, but in this case, you actually not only are not originally from a winemaking family, but an agricultural family in a totally different country. So can you? Oh wow, looks beautiful.
Hi. I don't know if it will work or not, but we will see. I'm not from a wine grower family, because I'm the first generation of producing wines, and no, it's not true because my grandfather was producing his wine only for himself, and so the thing is that I took over. So I bought this estate 13 now years ago, and because I wanted to produce wine, I wanted to have my vines to have my wine. So to control, to check the product from the roots to the final product. Look here, what is so beautiful.
What are we looking at right now? Is that Sauvignon Blanc?
So this is some Gamay.
Gamay. Oh,
yeah. So yeah, so really in the, let's say, the most excited parcel that we have, which is called Clos des Cendres, because it's so too far from the 2 kilometers, but from the state, and so the connection is very, very bad over there. So we couldn't. First generation of producers.
Yes, you've frozen for the moment. Hopefully, we'll get you back.
In 2007, and I bought.
If you want, it might be a connection. If you want to move closer to the winery, I'm losing. I'm losing. We lost about the last 30 seconds of what you were saying.
Okay, so I have to go back. Yeah, I know that. Yeah. So I want to show you some some vines that are very, very good. Now it's fine here. Better.
Yeah, great.
Okay, so I will stay here, and when I was, let's say, I was still living in Italy. I'm Italian, and I wanted to buy some vineyards, so some vines. And first, I tried to find them in Italy, in my region, which is Liguria. And the problem was that in Liguria there is no land, and the land is close to the, let's say, to the French Riviera, and so it's so expensive. So I couldn't afford to buy an estate over there. Just for me was I didn't have that money, and then I just crossed the border. The border was with France because my family is living 50 kilometers far from the French border, and in France I could find solution, let's say like this. And the solution then was in Loira Valley, because Loira is a region still now that is not so expensive, and is in the middle of France, so you can reach every, let's say, every point very quickly, and is let's say the land doesn't cost a lot, and you can find estate to buy, and you can try to do what you want without any, let's say, to be, under the judgment of other people. I know you should do like this, you should do like this. So it's like an area, let's say like this.
Yeah.
They are settling down here. It's again the
Yeah, we lost you a little bit again.
is fine or not? Because here there is a not. Okay.
I think we're going in and out a little bit.
Okay. And so this is why we moved. And the reason.
I lost you again.
To have this thing. This thing is Romorantin. So I had the chance to find.
Hey, Laura. I'm losing you right now.
But you are okay.
Sorry.
Look, for instance, at these leaves. It's big, like twice my hand. Huh?
Mm-hmm.
It's enormous. The grapes. Look at the bunches of grapes. How big they are.
Wow.
The local grape grows only here, and there are only 60 hectares planted in the world of this grape. So I don't want to say that it's good, it's not good. For me, it is, of course. It's strange, it's different. So it's
we lost you again, Laura. I think we might have to go back to the winery to get a better connection.
Okay, I have to go here. I know I have to go back to the cellar.
Sorry.
Connection.
It's
No.
Keep going. I would go a little closer to the winery because your voice is still going in and out.
Okay. I go backwards. So it's okay. Yeah.
That sounds good. Yes.
Okay. So and I was trying to say is that I bought the estate from another person. That was Monsieur Simon, and this is why the estate is called Montcy, because it's Simon in the vice versa. Simon Montcy. And this person stayed with me for about 3 years, just to give me all the knowledge, all the tricky thing to do and not to do, when you start a new business, is your first time that you do this kind of thing. And it was very, very good for me because, it was, I can say this, it was like a father that was here with me to explain me really what to do, what not to do. And then he left because it was my estate, not his anymore, and also because I made many changes to the estate. It was completely another baby. Because when I bought the estate, now we can go a little bit into the cellar, which is when we bought the estate was not organic, and today is organic, biodynamic, and natural winemaking. So, when you start working the soil in very old vineyards, the vineyards that are 80 years old, and you start breaking some roots. So he was crying me, no, you don't have to do this.
So why? I mean, how specifically did you end up in Cheverny? Obviously, there's a lot of, as you said, there's value in the Loire, but what brought you to specifically Cheverny in this estate? How did you discover it?
I found this estate, and that was a really the side that I was looking for. And the other thing was that I found this grape, the Romorantin, and then I said, okay, I want this grape. I want exactly. I want exactly this because it's autochthonal, because is let's say it doesn't exist in other countries. Is so really the Romorantin made the difference.
Fantastic. So it was more about the individuality of the opportunity of Romorantin to sort of make your stake on it. And you said there's 60 hectares. How many hectares are you working with?
So today we are 30 hectares, so 30. And as I said, all work, let's say, by hand. And so we double the surface, which is quite
that's amazing. So talk a little bit about what is, what are the differentiating parts of Cheverny versus the surrounding areas of the Loire? Because you have Touraine that's close to you.
Okay,
What are the
first part of the Loire? So closer to Sancerre, more close to Sancerre than close to, let's say, the other area. And so we have Sauvignon and Pinot Noir. So we don't have Chenin and Cabernet Franc, for instance. And so this first thing. And I would say that is an appellation of the North Touraine, but is what we call here a village appellation. So we cannot claim for our wines the Touraine appellation.
Okay, because you're a specific, a smaller village in itself. So even though you are in Touraine, it's its own thing.
Technical sheet, let's say technical operation to produce the wines, and so we cannot claim the Touraine appellation. And the entire area is only 500 hectares. I can show you let's say a map. And we are in the area of the Château de la Loire. Mm-hmm. So is let me see if okay. So I think it's very useful. So this is the Loire. This is Blois, which is the biggest town close to us. And if you go up here, but this is entire France, but here you have Sancerre. So okay. We are 1 hour and a half driving from Sancerre. And we are exactly in the middle of France. So all these areas, so orange is the appellation, which is spread in 24 different villages. And out of these 24, there are 10 of them in which we can produce the core Cheverny appellation. Okay. So, and this is the tricky thing. So here in my estate, I can produce 3 different appellations: Cheverny, core Cheverny, and Crémant de Loire. Okay. Crémant is a sparkling wine, so made with Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, exactly as a Crémant is in other regions. Mm-hmm. Then the appellation Cheverny can be red, rosé, or white. And for the white, we have Gamay. For the white, sorry, we have a Sauvignon and Chardonnay. So I will show you the bottles that we produce of the 2 Cheverny. And for the red, we can produce with Pinot Noir, Gamay, and Malbec. That in this region we call it COT.
What are the percentages for the white and the red that you're allowed of each variety?
Okay, the white has to be a majority of Sauvignon, and there can be 60-40, for instance, the blend with the Chardonnay. The red, it has to be a majority of Pinot Noir. And the law of the appellation just changed. We were in the process of changing everything since 2015, and now so is fixed, it has to be a majority of Pinot Noir, which is very good because the soil, we didn't talk about the soil, so I couldn't be.
Can you flip your phone around? Possibly, we're seeing it. Yeah, from that angle is better for us in terms of a view.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
No,
And the thing is that we couldn't walk to the soil, to the parcel over there. This is a little bit a problem, but the thing is that we have a specific soil here, which is clay on limestone, which is perfect for the Pinot Noir.
Yeah.
Really, really. Maybe if I go here, which is very, very close, but you can see, is a red soil, and then it was raining this morning, and it's really, really perfect for the. You see this?
Yeah.
This is clay. This is clay. Up.
I remember walking through very wet clay when we went to visit you, so I believe.
Wet again is wet again, but next week we will be having 29 degrees, so it's fine.
Good to be wet now.
So now it was more about 14 degrees Celsius. Yeah, it was really freezing this week, and we had a lot of rain, so it was not really the best week to have, but doesn't matter. So the flower is already gone, so the flower period is gone, so it's fine. Good. And so we have this kind of soil, so the clay on limestone for the red, and for the white, I have this is another thing. So this was another reason for which I bought this estate. We have a parcel which is 10 hectares in one hole with a sandy soil. And in the middle of this parcel, there is this parcel, this single vineyard called Clos de Cendre, in which the soil is like ashes on the surfaces. So it's more gray, it's not as red as you can see here. You see? Mm-hmm. Okay. And then, so we said Sauvignon Chardonnay for the white, Pinot Noir, Gamay, and Malbec for the red. And then the last grapes that we have here on the estate, the Romorantin for the white in the appellation Courcheverny.
So talk about, as you said, it's only grown there. So let's talk a little bit about growing. What is the growing cycle like for Romorantin? Is it, what are the diseases that you're concerned about? You talked about the size of the leaves and the bunches, but, what are the skins like? What are the, it's a little bit of a tannic grape, correct?
It's really tannic, yeah. It's I don't know what to say. That is similar to Chenin, but a little bit. And let's try to go to these Romorantin grapes over there. And so the leaves are very big, like twice, 3 times the leaves of a Pinot, for instance.
Okay.
The bunch is enormous compared to one of Pinot Noir, and here we are. The bunch are enormous, and so.
Oop, we lost you again.
I would say very. Plant.
I think you're going to have to back up a little bit because we lost you as you got into the vines.
So
sorry about that. We would like to be in the vineyard. Yeah, there.
Yes.
I think you're back.
Yeah, I'm back. So, up. Okay. So, I was saying it's very resistant. Ciao! And is the last grape that we harvest on the estate. So normally when we start the harvest in September, we will harvest the Romorantin in October, so 1 month later. The skin is white, but is very, how to say, first it's very thick, and then it takes a color like a gold color when it's ripe, and the pulp is very tannic. This is why we can produce wine that we can age for a long time.
I thought. And then there's I think that the varietal or the variety for us was there's not so many producers who come in, but my first experience was Francois Cazin, and they make a sweeter version of it. So is it easy to get? Is it because it gets botrytis or you harvest it too late that gets you that sweetness, or what is the choice that goes into making a dry or a sweet version of Romorantin?
So we defined the rules of the Romorantin very strictly now, and to be a sweet wine, so a sweet wine, it has to have 25 grams of sugar residual, which is a high quantity.
That's a lot.
And yeah, it's a lot. Before, it didn't exist this law, let's say, and then you could find wines that were what we call in France tendre, so they were half sweet. And why? Because considering that is the last one that we harvest on the estate, we are already in October, and if the back season is good, you can leave the grapes until November, and then producing like a sweet wine by passerillage, leaving the grapes on the bunches on the vines, and harvesting later on if the weather is fine. I was never able to produce a sweet wine. I tried twice, but because to produce a sweet wine, you need either to put a lot of sulfite, or to pasteurize the wine, or to put how to call it, another preserver that I don't use any. So the sorbate, sorry, yeah, and. Producing natural wines is difficult to produce sweet wines.
Fair. And then since we're focused on it, let's you specifically make two different versions. You make an unoaked version and an oaked version of Romorantin. Can you talk about both of those ideas and why you do each? And obviously, if you want to, perfect, like that.
These two, one is the classic, let's say, stainless steel Courcheverny, to which we gave a name this year, Luce.
Luce, nice.
And so stainless steel, you are obliged to bottle it not before June following the harvest, so has to stay 9 months on lease. The second one is Plenitude, which is again 100% Romorantin, but so I press the bunches of grape, and then I put the juice into barrels. You can go now and see one, because I think the Wi-Fi is supporting this thing. Yes, I have one here. Let's try. So for instance, I have one here out of my, you see, this is a big barrels, so 500 liters full of Romorantin. So Plenitude 2019 is here. And so we press the bunches, we put the juice there, and then it does what you want in the wood. There is really hands off.
And do you, I mean, deciding between which, obviously you make much less that goes into oak. Is it a vineyard selection that you choose that specifically there's an area or okay?
Because you have the chance to have old vines, so and in one parcel, so everything is there. So it's exactly the same. It's exactly the same. But then it changes a lot because the wood gives a little bit more tannin, and because the wood gives a micro oxygenation, and also because there is nothing into it, so it's like so it takes notes of aging, of oxidation a little bit.
And in terms of ageability,
Huh?
What do you think the difference is in terms of, do you think the one that is because of the increase of tannin and structure that you get from oak versus stainless steel, that one ages more than the or better than the other?
No, I think that both of them, they can age very well. Um, the the oak one, we can say that is more ready to drink very quickly, because it has already this aroma, typical of from the Romorantin. And the other one is better, so the stainless steel is better when it has 6 months after the bottling.
Fantastic. So let's before we get to tasting some wines, I want to. We've talked a little bit about soil types, but I want to talk about you were, I think in making your wines, you also come from the background of also having been a sommelier and working in a whole different form of sales as well, correct?
Sommelier, you mean? Yeah, I'm a sommelier, but I never practice it like a
Oh, you
sommelier.
never
So
run it? Okay. You know,
it's my hobby. Yeah,
uh,
it was my hobby when I was working, because I'm a food engineer. So when I was working in the food industry, and I knew exactly what was in the dish, but I didn't know anything about what was in the glass. So I said, it's very interesting. By the way, and so I said, okay. I went back to school. I studied for 3 years for the sommelier school. I'm a sommelier, but I never worked in a restaurant as a sommelier. No. I'm not able to do the service à la bougie or things like this.
So I actually, one of my closest friend works in food science and works with, well, now works with, whey protein, but in the past worked with, NutraSweet and fake sugar and all sorts of things. But it's a very interesting way of tasting and thinking about wine when we taste together. How do you think your background from working as a food engineer inform the choices that you now make being a winemaker?
Yeah, I think it was more my background of being the daughter of my father that was working in olive oil, and he was able to recognize the oil if the source was from Liguria, from Toscana, from Sicily, or from Turkey, Tunisia, or Spain, So we were testing so many oils all the time. And so I think when you use your palate, then you train your palate. So this is more the reason. And yeah.
No, that makes total sense. What I, how did going is your family's farm or olive farm farmed organically or biodynamically? No.
No. And no, it was a normal farming. At this stage in Italy, organic was not, nobody knew about. But like me, when I arrived here, I didn't know anything about biodynamic. I knew that I wanted to have my estate organic, because when I arrived here, I had, two small daughters. One that was 3 years. Any chance to be Italian? There is something coming on, but I cannot read the. Sorry, you have to handle the questions, Steve. Sorry. Sorry, what I was explaining. Yeah, I was sure that I wanted to be running my estate organic, because I had two girls. One was 3 years old, the second one was 6 months old. So for them, for the future, for the nature that you give to your kids, I wanted to do it organic. But I never heard about biodynamic at this point. And I had the chance that my first Salon des Vins de Loire, which is for us in Loire, is, the taste that you have to attend, because everybody will be there to taste the new vintage, all the customer, I mean. Mm-hmm. And I met a vigneron, a wine grower, that came by chance to taste my wines, and let's say, explain me the biodynamic a little bit. And this wine grower was Noël Panguet, that had at the time an estate in Vouvray. And so, the very old man that is very passionate, that tries to explain you the difference between a natural wine and normal wine. So it was a really passionate thing. And so I said, there is something going on here. And I went there to work with with the people working with him, and try to understand. That was impossible to understand without following something like a school. And then I went back to school to follow courses of biodynamics at the Maison de la Biodynamie in Colmar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we have the headquarters in. Here in France, and then we decided to move on to biodynamic the entire estate. So first we tried in 3 hectares, and then by hand it was really, let's say, in one sense was ridiculous, and the other one was just to convince ourselves that this was doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. And doing the dynamization by hand, doing with the small things, the pulverization the leaves. It was really funny. And then we bought the equipment to do it properly on the entire estate.
So when was the estate officially totally farmed biodynamic? What vintage was the first?
2010. So the first 2 years really was like a little bit of a bricolage, what we call here, our time, and certified Demeter since 2015.
Fantastic. I'm going to keep on this question, but there was one interesting one that came up, which is you are obviously not originally from the Loire or even French. Were there challenges when you came there as an Italian making wine? Were people like
I was like how do you call it, in undefined object that come in a place in which is not expected, and yeah, the woman that tries to do wines that never did in her life. Was I just said in our the undefined object that arrives on the earth, something was like this. Yep.
The woman who fell to the Loire, obviously, so 2010 you switched to biodynamic. What brought you to focus and define yourself as in natural winemaking and
since the beginning. Yeah, when I started I didn't use any yeast, any enzyme, anything. Mm-hmm. Of course, some sulfite, because always we reduce the quantity really drastically, but it's the only thing that we use.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And, so since the beginning, I did the winemaking, so the fermentation with natural yeast, for instance, and
Why I know this is on our sheet, but something that really interests me is why do you think in the Loire it's so easy? I understand why it's easy to be biodynamic in Alsace and why Colmar is all biodynamic, but why do you think it's with all of the you've had in my time knowing you've had multiple very tough vintages because of hail and rain and frost. Why do you think in the Loire there is such a pervasive organic, biodynamic, and also natural leaning winemaking and viticulture? Because it's kind of the heart of the movement, as it were.
Yeah, because we have a guru of the biodynamic here in Savigny, Nicolas Joly. So of course he spreads his word around, and I don't know, maybe because nobody is expecting you of doing specific thing of beautiful and big things. You can do mistake, and for a French person it's not easy to make a mistake. So here it is, because it's like a playground. So nobody is judging you here. you cannot make mistake if you are in Burgundy, for instance, or if you are in Bordeaux, or if you are in Champagne, Yeah.
That's fun. That's a really good way to look at it. I like that.
Yeah. And then
Sorry
thanks to Nicolas Joly, because with his Renaissance des Appellations, he's in Savonnières, so which is in the Loire Valley.
Can you talk a little bit about, I mean, I know that Renaissance, there's a ton of producers that all of us know who are in Renaissance, but how Renaissance came about and how you became a part of it.
Okay, because when you start biodynamic, then I think the most important things to do is to ask questions to other wine growers. So it's not a science; it's more like a feeling. You can do the same thing, the same operation in 10 different ways. So it's more how you do compared with your soil, with your vines, with the thing that you have. So it's more about talking with other wine growers, with our other people. And then if you talk with other biodynamic wine grower, then you have your cycle of person around you that are in. So the first time they invited me to a wine tasting that they do in Angers. It's like an off of Salon des Vins de Loire, which is called the Grenier Saint-Jean. And then I attended to this tasting as a guest, but not part of Renaissance. And then I think 3 years later, I asked to enter into the association. And to enter to the association, you have to, for sure, present to have a dossier, to present a file, and with all the organic certification, the biodynamic certification, all these things. But also you have to have a mentor, so some people, they came here to audit the estate. They were very impressed by the work that we were doing, and then there is a final tasting. So all the members of the association, once per year, they test the samples of the not the newcomer, but the ones that they want to enter to the association, and you have to have the 100% consensus.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, and I don't know why I sent samples, and I went through the tasting the first time I presented the samples. I was very, very happy. And this was 2017. Okay. Yeah. And now, I'm part of Renaissance, and so the state is part of Renaissance, and is again this being part of this networking. It helps you a lot, because for instance, when in the last vintages we frosted a lot, we were sharing a lot of tips on you should spray this kind of herbs or not the other one. If you have problem with animals coming and eating your vines, so you can call somebody and say, hey, what should I do? I have rabbits eating my plants. Maybe then the answer is not so good, because then they can tell you, when the moon is in Sagittarius, you have to burn the skin of a rabbit and then spread the ashes. Okay, maybe you don't want to do it, but yeah.
That actually,
let's do this.
That's an interesting, so a question that I've had, we were one of my last conversations was with Saracen in New Zealand. How much of the product that goes into your biodynamic preparations and the things that you do on the vineyard to be biodynamic is indigenous and local versus how much do you have to get from elsewhere?
What do you mean by, I don't understand, sorry.
So, you have the preparations that go into the sprays, all of those things. How many of those?
I don't produce them. We buy all of them. Yeah.
Are they locally produced where you're buying them from, or do you have to buy them from outside?
the Biodynamic Service, which is a company specialized in this. Yeah, because to produce them is very, very, very difficult, time consuming, and you cannot do it by yourself. No, it's really impossible. You have to be part of a team, and here in Loire there is a team of people preparing this. You have to know that here the estate in Loire, the size of an estate in Loire is normally 5 or 6 hectares. It's not so big. So even sharing let's say the preparation is very, very difficult. So I prefer to buy from a certified third party than do it on my own. Yeah.
No, I remember this past winter going through being in the shed of Benoit Marguet in Champagne and seeing all of his essential oils and having him walk through how much everything costs him that he uses. And I was like, oh, wow. You know, I think people don't quite understand the cost of farming biodynamically. Is beyond occasionally having to skin a rabbit and burn it. You know, there's a lot. There's a reason that there's a cost to biodynamically made wine.
Of course, like everything. So yeah.
And, well,
what are you drinking, Steve?
I'm drinking a multitude of beverages, but mostly the 16.
That's a wine.
the 16 Louis de la Sauce, which.
Okay, so you started with the red and not with the white.
Yeah, no, I because we had a limited amount, I left them at red and white. I've fortunately got to taste it a bunch of times and actually drank it a bottle I had corvined a couple weeks ago, so I feel very fresh in my understanding of plenitude. But
let's take some plenitude.
Fantastic. So where does the name Plenitude come from?
I don't know if it's a fair question, but I can answer. You know the answer already, so it's not so fair, Steve. Yeah, I produced this wine for myself, only 1 barrel for my 40th birthday. So, and the first vintage was 2008. So. It was my gift to myself, you know. I said, okay, I want to try something new, and the plenitude. Why plenitude? Because it's like a total fulfilling. So you arrived to something that really you wanted. You put all your energy, all your fight. You believe me, it was not so easy to come from Italy here in France. I never lived in France before, by the way. So. It was my first time in France, and when I arrived here with the 2 girls, my daughter, the first week, one of them had, I don't know how to say in English, you know, this illness that you have red points in the entire of your body, this kind of thing, varicella is called in Italiano. So it was not easy. So it was my total fulfillment, and so this is why I call it Plenitude, which is a very good name. And then we are still producing Plenitude.
There you go.
There you go.
So you started with 1 barrel. How many barrels now are you making in total?
Is 6 barrels, 6 demi-muit, so 30 hectoliter. You know, we calculated by hectoliter, not by cases.
Yes. And then the percentage. So is a goal to add 1 new barrel every year, or are you adding? What's the average?
A new barrel every year. So the one that I showed you before was the 19, and then some of them are out of the process now. Yeah.
So there'll be 1.
You. I'm drinking from the club.
It's okay. It's 7:45 for you. You deserve a glass of wine.
Yeah. Time to go back home. and have some food.
So talk to me about what is the flavor profile of Romarantan in oak and in not in oak. Obviously, you have the oaked version right in front of you, but what is that when you're tasting it? What are the flavors that you're looking for? What's the texture you're looking for when you taste that wine, or any of either?
Texture is completely another one, because for sure in the plenitude is richer, is more, let's say, can we say more fatty, more velvety. The other one is more straight, is more acid. And I would say that the first characteristic that comes really to your nose is this oxidation. This is really what I want. It's not an oxidation like vin jaune, but it's an oxidation, a small one, a little one. And it's like if the wine had 5 years. So you will reach this oxidation in a stainless steel Romarantin after 5 years in the bottle.
So are they like, is it a pronounced nutty quality to it? Are you getting a little bit different quality of fruit in terms of the aromatics? That's a little bit either riper or aged more. What would you say?
In terms of aromatics, they're really different, because if you take the stainless steel one, is the first impression is white flour.
Yeah.
Like acacia. Acacia or white flour, and it's not so aromatic in the nose. But then when you oxygenate a little bit then you have this aroma of rhubarb coming out. And here, this aroma of rhubarb, you have to go and find it. You will find it, but the first aroma coming out of plenitude is the oxidation, for sure.
Interesting. Rhubarb is it's a very fun descriptor, and we talked about it with Cristiana Tiberia's Cerasuolo, but obviously that's a light red wine. To find it in a white wine, are you saying it's an underripe version of it, the greenness of rhubarb, or are you getting it's an interesting descriptor. It's the first time I've ever heard it used for a white wine.
It's not really the greenness of rhubarb. It's more, when you cook it, when it's a little bit caramelized. Because the tricky thing of this grape is then when it ages, the nose, it seems like a sweet wine. But then you taste it, and in the mouth, it's still very sharp and still very direct. So very acid. Another characteristic of this grape is the acidity, really the acidity. And also, what I want to say is the food pairing, which is very interesting with this wine, because it's a wine that you can pair with asparagus, with artichoke. These vegetables that are very difficult to pair with, and with all the sunchoke, all the roots vegetables.
Yeah, I think the Loire has an upper hand in pairing with all those vegetables, in my opinion. I think a really good, depending on the ripeness of Sauvignon Blanc or Chenin, you can sometimes be very good pairings just like this. But there's something, to your point, the fattiness and richness of this really takes it to another level. Yes, beautiful.
I know that you will be tasting this, so you had it already on your glass. So.
Yes, I've been enjoying it. This is one of my favorite of your wines. To be, I think it's something that's so you can talk about it, but the way the Malbec, which is so small, becomes such an integral part of the sort of earthiness and I don't know. It feels like you're working a vineyard. It's sweaty, it's soily, it's got all these, that kind of comes to there.
You can smell the earth, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. The percentages, so the first one, plenitude, of course, was 100% Romarantin, and Louis de la Saussay is 60% Pinot Noir, with then Malbec and Gamay. So mandatory for the blending. What we want here is a very digestive wine, a very, let's say, easy drinking because it's made with a Pinot at the end of the day, but we want to give it let's say a character, a more a personality. So so we do some pigeage, and we try to extract some tannin, more tannin from the Pinot.
Interesting. So how generally are you doing more pigeage than pump overs in the winery?
No, we don't do a lot of pigeage because we do it by hand, and we create our
fair.
So we have like a tube with a disc, and we do it by hand. So when I do, the hiring for the harvest, so I check the muscle of the people. And we had a fiber tank. We cutted the edge of this tank, and so it's like a swimming pool now. So we can go there. And what before was done with the feet, now we do it by hand. And no, I don't have the turbo pigeon or this kind of thing. Not at all. No. No, but because we have another cuvée of Cheverny Rouge, so the classic one, and the classic one is more easy drinking, the wine that you can pair with salami, with fish, very, very for me, I define this wine like a buddy wine. So that you want a bottle, you drink the entire bottle with your friends. And in this one I want more a serious wine. So something that a little bit more, say, enrobé more, let's say, velvety, more complete wine. Yeah.
Okay. So using pigeage, really getting a little bit more tannin, building a little bit more structure into it to make it more serious.
Yeah. More serious wine. And when we can, depending on the vintage, we can do some. So we can do the winemaking with the. How do you say in English? Sorry, with the stamp.
Okay.
Yeah. So because this is the more tricky question. Do you use the stamp or not? Yes, of course, but it depends on the vintage. If they are perfect, yes, you can use them. If they are not, you cannot use them. Yeah.
Okay. You want something lighter if it's not a little bit more soft on the grapes if the vintage isn't going to give you the quality, or it's a little bit tougher. That makes sense.
If they're ripe, then you bring a green part to the wine, so which is not what we want.
Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, interesting. So we talked a little bit about the Cheverny Rouge. Can you talk a little bit about your Cheverny Blanc?
Okay, of course. The Cheverny Blanc, so which is not Romorantin, but is Sauvignon and Chardonnay. The classical blend is 80 Sauvignon and 20 Chardonnay. That depends on the vintages because we don't have the final recipe until we don't harvest. And depending on the weather, depending on the frost, depending on all these things, and any case, even if we use natural yeast, the Sauvignon is aromatic. Mm-hmm. We cannot do anything. Sauvignon is aromatic, so you have this aroma. The first aroma is really Sauvignon coming out, and I would say that the touch, the 20% of Chardonnay brings the mouth feeling, which is for me very, very important because wines 100% Sauvignon, there are thousands. Yes.
Especially people who are.
I have a discussion with some people of the sorting table. What the hell, I can sell a wine which is not Sauvignon, not Chardonnay, is a blend of the two. Yeah, but it's good being a blend because you bring more, let's say, more mouth feeling. You have something different, and this is exactly what we want here. So when you taste it, of course, it's aromatic. Of course, it's really enjoyable. It's the wine that you have for an aperitif. but then it stays on your mouth, so it's still there. So the mouth feeling is long, so which is really, really good.
Yeah, I for one like Cheverny Blanc because I like what Chardonnay adds to it, and it also can take away some of the vegetal qualities and some of the pyrazinic qualities as well. But that's just me.
I'm not a vegetable part, but no, the tricky thing is really checking before the harvest when the parts are ready or not to be harvested. Yeah.
So, two final questions.
Yeah.
One, can you tell us a little bit? Obviously, the 2019s are what we're going to see next on the market in Illinois, in the Midwest, in the U.S. Can you talk a little bit about the 2019 vintage for you?
Of course. 19 was, I would say, an easy vintage because you have to imagine that we went through 16 and 17 with frost, which was a disaster. Okay. Then we had 18 that was, the frost was, we tried to manage the frost, but we had a lot of milieu, you know, the illness
Yeah.
on the plants, on the vines. And 19, we had the opposite. So we had like a draw. Yeah, the weather was very, very, very hot during the, so, and this is the beauty of being organic. Your vines, they don't suffer of the draw because the roots are so deep into the soil that they can find water everywhere. And so we had quantity, quality. Despite today, we had 41 degrees for 1 week here in Cheverny, Celsius, wow. Which is, wow, yeah, exactly.
It's unbearable.
And we start to the harvest the 6th of September, which is very, very, let's say, soon, very quick for us, very early date. And the harvest were, let's say, very, very easy because compared to 18 was the profile of the wines was more a profile of wines from the south of France because we didn't have the acidity in 18. Mm-hmm. And 19 was a Loire profile with the right acidity, the right pH, okay, with sugar. Yeah, with sugar. But then we have wines with 13 degrees of alcohol, but very well, let's say, mixed with the smell, the tannin, and the structure of the wine, so no problem. It was a beautiful, beautiful vintage. Yeah. So no problem during the fermentation, nothing. Fantastic.
That's great to hear. They were amazing. They were fantastic to taste at the out of barrel and tank at the winery. So that was very, very exciting. The other question, and I made a joke about it, but sincerely, you know, one of the things that I think was very interesting at seeing you at the Salon de Vin de Loire is that you not only are pouring your wines, but you're giving people taste of jellies and of preserves that you make.
Yeah.
So can you tell a little bit about that?
The jelly. Okay. Here we are. No, sorry, I made a mistake. Okay, so we produce a lot of jams here, and let's say the adventure of producing the jams started with producing the jams from jelly from the grapes. So we have 5 different single grapes jam, and so Malbec, Chardonnay, Gamay, Romantin, Pinot Noir. And the thing is that they are really not really a jelly because the texture is like a jam. So it's a mix of fruit, so bunches of grape and sugar. Very simple. Very, very simple.
I'm gonna make some rhubarb jam actually this weekend, so I'm inspired. What I mean is, when did you start making the jams?
Okay, the first vintage for the jams was 2009 because we had a back season that was, let's say, a good one. You know, when you harvest by hand, you leave on the vines all what we call the verjus. So the grapes, they are not ready to pick up. And there were a lot of them, and with these bunches of grape, we produce our jam for at home. It was good, and so we said, what if we start producing, let's say, to the jams from the grapes to be sold to customer. So we tried again in 2010, and then in 2011 we bought the machine. Unfortunately, I cannot go to the machine because it's too far in the cellar, and so there is a special area here in the cellar in which we have these two machines, like two big casserole, in which we cook the jams. So this was 2011. So we built the new part. So we built the walls, and we bought the machine, and then from the grapes we move on to fruit. So now we produce a lot of different jams with other fruit. For instance, we produce the rhubarb because here in these areas in Sologne there is a lot of rhubarb because it's a very raining region. And so if it rains a lot, when in Italy, when I was a child, I didn't know what rhubarb was, because in Liguria is a very dry region, so you don't have rhubarb. So I discovered the rhubarb when I moved to France.
That's well. I have friends who are part of a CSA, and they have too much. He can't make too many pies, so he's like, "What should I do? Do you want some?" I was like, "Great, I'll make it." But perfect to be talking to a jam maker while thinking about it. But I want to say thank you so much. It was great to see your face. I mean, I'm very much looking forward to coming out again and seeing the winery again, and getting the new vintages in.
And with all your people around, organize to the Loira Valley when we will be down.
Once we are, yes, once we are able. But I really appreciate your time as always. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure talking with you and with all of you guys over there.
Cheers. Ciao. Have a great weekend.
Ciao. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.